From packed arenas in Britain to the brightest lights in America, Joe Calzaghe, Ricky Hatton, and David Haye carried British boxing on their backs in the mid to late 2000s. Three very different fighters, three unforgettable styles, and one era where Britain didn't just compete on the global stage, it led it. In this video, we break down the top 5 defining wins of each man, the nights they conquered champions, silenced critics, and made British boxing impossible to ignore. Let's rewind to an era that changed everything. Before he became the brash heavyweight with movie star looks and a mouth to match, David Haye was something far more dangerous. A wrecking machine at cruiserweight with one-punch knockout power and a world title collection to prove it. In just 22 fights, Haye unified the cruiserweight division, something only legends like Evander Holyfield had done before him. And he didn't do it quietly. He knocked people out cold, talked a storm, and then backed it up under the brightest lights. But Haye wasn't done. After conquering the cruiserweights, he did what most fighters fear. He moved up to heavyweight. Not for easy paydays, but to chase history. And somehow, he pulled it off. He beat giants, dropped former champions, and brought speed and flair to a division that had grown slow and stale. This is not just a countdown. It's the story of 5 nights when David Haye didn't just win, he dominated, silenced critics, and made boxing history. From hostile arenas in Paris to grudge matches that split the country, these are the moments that defined the Highmaker's career. And by the end, you'll understand why, even now, he remains one of the most thrilling British fighters of the modern era. Stick around, because his best win might not be the one you're thinking of. Number 5, John Ruiz. On April 3rd, 2010, David Haye stepped into the ring at the Manchester Arena to make the first defense of his WBA heavyweight title. His opponent was John Ruiz, a seasoned American veteran and 2-time former heavyweight world champion. On paper, it looked like a stern test. Ruiz had shared the ring with the likes of Evander Holyfield, Roy Jones Jr., and James Toney, and had only been stopped once in his long career, way back in 1996. But in reality, this was a version of Ruiz already on the decline. Heading into the fight, Ruiz had lost twice to Nikolai Valuev and had come up short against Ruslan Chagaev. His tricky, often awkward style had earned him wins, sometimes controversially. But at 38 years old, his reflexes and durability were no longer what they once were. This would turn out to be the final bout of his 18-year professional career. From the opening bell, Haye made it clear this wouldn't go the distance. He floored Ruiz just seconds into the first round with a lightning-fast combination and dropped him again in the 5th and 6th. Ruiz kept coming forward, showing trademark toughness, but Haye's speed, angles, and power were simply too much. By round 9, Ruiz's corner had seen enough, and the referee waved it off. It was a statement win for Haye, his first defense at heavyweight, and a chance to show that his explosive style could translate against experienced, durable opposition. While Ruiz was clearly past his best, he was still a legitimate name, and Haye became only the second man to stop him inside the distance. It wasn't the most dangerous fight of Haye's career, but it was a commanding performance that kept his momentum rolling and reminded the heavyweight division that he wasn't just a former cruiserweight with big talk. He was a serious threat. Number 4, Derek Chisora. By the time David Haye faced Derek Chisora on July 14, 2012, this wasn't just another heavyweight bout. It was personal. The bad blood had been brewing for months, boiling over during an infamous brawl in Munich earlier that year. Haye, then semi-retired, clashed violently with Chisora at a post-fight press conference following Chisora's loss to Vitaly Klitschko. Punches were thrown, security was overrun, and the footage dominated headlines. The British Boxing Board of Control refused to sanction the fight, so it was licensed by the Luxembourg Boxing Federation instead. The result? A highly anticipated showdown at West Ham's Upton Park in front of 30,000 fans. At that point, Chisora had lost 3 of his last 4 fights, but he was no pushover. He'd gone the distance with Vitaly Klitschko, pushed Robert Helenius to a controversial split decision loss, and was widely respected for his toughness, chin, and relentless pressure. No one had come close to stopping him. Until Haye. The early rounds were cagey, with Chisora pressing forward and Haye picking his shots. Then, in round 5, Haye delivered a brutal reminder of why his right hand was feared in both divisions. A perfectly timed left hook right hand combination sent Chisora crashing to the canvas for the first knockdown of his career. Moments later, Haye closed the show with a clinical finishing sequence that dropped Chisora again and forced the referee to step in. Haye became the first man ever to stop Derek Chisora, a feat that only 2 others, Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte, have managed since. In a career filled with wars, Chisora had always been durable. That night, Haye was simply too fast, too sharp, and too precise. This wasn't just a revenge-fueled spectacle. It was a high-level performance under real pressure, and one of the most satisfying and violent wins of Haye's career. Number 3, Enzo Maccarinelli. On March 8, 2008, British boxing fans witnessed one of the most anticipated domestic clashes in years, David Haye versus Enzo Maccarinelli. This wasn't just a grudge match or a battle of rising stars. It was a high-stakes unification bout between 2 reigning world champions. Haye held the WBA and WBC cruiserweight titles. Maccarinelli came in with the WBO belt. The O2 Arena in London was sold out, and the buzz surrounding the fight was immense. Both men were known for their punching power. Haye had built a reputation as a knockout artist with explosive speed and athleticism, while Maccarinelli, the heavy-handed Welshman, brought 21 stoppages and 27 wins. Many believed Enzo had the edge in fundamentals and saw him as the man more likely to prevail if the fight turned tactical. He had tasted defeat just once before, back in 2000, and had gone nearly 8 years unbeaten heading into the bout. But from the opening bell, Haye looked the sharper man, quicker to the punch, more mobile, and brimming with confidence. He took command immediately, using his speed to beat Maccarinelli to the target. Then, early in the second round, Haye landed a thunderous right hand that rocked Enzo to his core. He followed up with a devastating flurry, forcing the referee to step in and wave it off. The fight was over in just 2 rounds. A major unification showdown ended in less than 6 minutes. It was a career-defining moment for David Haye. Not only did he unify 3 of the 4 major cruiserweight titles, but he did it by stopping a respected, durable world champion in brutal fashion. Against a man many believed could beat him, Haye left no doubt. He wasn't just the best cruiserweight in Britain. He was the best in the world. Number 2, Nikolai Valuev. On November 7, 2009, David Haye walked into the ring in Nuremberg, Germany, to face one of the most physically imposing heavyweights in boxing history, Nikolai Valuev. At 7 feet tall and weighing over 300 pounds, Valuev towered over the former cruiserweight champion, who came in at just over 210 pounds. The size disparity was comical. Haye looked like a middleweight, standing next to a literal giant. But this wasn't just a circus act. The WBA heavyweight title was on the line, and Haye was attempting to become only the 2nd former cruiserweight champion after Evander Holyfield to capture a heavyweight crown. It was the classic David versus Goliath setup, but with real belts and real legacy on the line. Valuev, despite his freakish dimensions, had long been seen by some as a protected champion. A year earlier, he'd controversially scraped past a 46-year-old Evander Holyfield in a fight many felt he clearly lost. His size gave him advantages, but his limitations, particularly in mobility and technique, were clear to sharp-eyed critics. That said, going into the Haye fight, Valuev had only lost once in 51 fights and never been knocked down. He was still the reigning champion, and the fight was taking place in his backyard. Haye boxed a smart, disciplined fight. He used his speed and movement to stay off the ropes, circled away from danger, and picked his moments with quick, sharp right hands. He didn't try to outmuscle Valuev, he outthought him. In the final round, Haye landed a huge right hand that wobbled the giant, something no opponent had ever done so visibly. The bell saved Valuev from potential disaster, but the damage had been done. The judges scored it a majority decision for Haye, and with that, he became WBA heavyweight champion of the world. It wasn't the most thrilling fight, but it was a historic win, overcoming a near 100-pound weight disadvantage and almost a foot in height to become a 2-weight world champion. It would be the last time Nikolai Valuev ever fought. He retired after the loss, making Haye just the 2nd man to ever defeat him, and the only man to seriously hurt him in the ring. For Haye, It was validation on the world stage. He had conquered the cruiserweight division, and now, against the odds, he had climbed. Number 1, Jean-Marc Mormec. On November 10, 2007, David Haye traveled into hostile territory, fighting in front of a raucous French crowd in Paris to challenge Jean-Marc Mormec for the WBA and WBC cruiserweight titles. At the time, Mormec wasn't just a world champion. He was the man in the cruiserweight division. A two-time world champion, he had reclaimed his belts after avenging his earlier loss to O'Neal Bell, and was seen as the division's most seasoned and battle-hardened fighter. Strong, experienced, and respected, Mormec had shared the ring with top-level opposition and was fighting in his own backyard, where he had never lost. For Haye, it was a step into deep waters. This was only his 20th professional fight, and while his talent and power were undeniable, he had never fought anyone on Mormec's level. Critics questioned his chin, his stamina, and whether he was ready for such a leap. But Haye had promised to not just win, but to do it with style. Early on, it looked like Mormec might overwhelm him. In round 4, the Frenchman caught Haye with a heavy right hand and dropped him. The crowd erupted. Haye was on the canvas in the biggest fight of his life, and the narrative looked to be writing itself. But what followed was one of the most impressive comebacks of Haye's career. He regrouped, he adjusted, and then, in round 7, he struck. A fast, vicious combination stunned Mormec, and Haye poured on the pressure. Mormec reeled backwards into the ropes, taking flush shots without reply, until the referee jumped in to stop the fight. Haye had done it. In Mormec's home city, against the division's number 1, after being knocked down, he rose to become a unified world champion. It wasn't just a win, it was a coronation. This was the moment that changed everything. It proved Haye could dig deep, survive adversity, and deliver under real pressure. And it was the launchpad for everything that came after, from unifying the cruiserweight division to conquering the heavyweights. Against a champion who had never been stopped at cruiserweight, Haye didn't just take the belts, he took them emphatically. From the valleys of Wales to the bright lights of Las Vegas, Joe Calzaghe built one of the most untouchable records in boxing history, and he did it the hard way. Undefeated, unbeaten, unbroken. This is the fighter who ruled the super middleweight division for a decade, took on the best champions of 2 weight classes, and walked away without ever being knocked out, stopped, or beaten. Slick, relentless, and armed with one of the fastest punch outputs boxing has ever seen, Calzaghe didn't just win, he overwhelmed. In this top 5, we're counting down the defining victories that turned a proud Welsh champion into a pound-for-pound great. From brutal wars in Britain to legacy fights on American soil, these are the nights that proved Joe Calzaghe belonged among the all-time elite. Because when the talking stopped and the punches started, nobody could live with the pride of Wales. Number 5, Robin Reid, 13th February, 1999. Before Joe Calzaghe was an American pay-per-view star, before the world accepted him as elite, he had to survive the night that almost derailed everything. Robin Reid was no ordinary challenger. A former WBC super middleweight champion, he had never been stopped, never been knocked down, and was still in his physical prime. More importantly, there was bad blood. Reid had refused to unify with Calzaghe when he held the WBC belt, and Joe never forgot it. Calzaghe came in throwing his trademark blistering combinations, arms moving like a blur, peppering Reid with volume. But Reid was dangerous, thick-set, powerful, and patient. He kept finding Calzaghe with heavy right hands that snapped Joe's head back and shook him in ways no opponent had before. One of those bombs at the end of round 9 was among the cleanest shots Calzaghe ever took in his career. What made this fight special wasn't dominance, it was survival. Reid forced Calzaghe into clinches, pushed him back, and turned the bout into a gritty, uncomfortable war. The 8th round saw Reid docked a point for repeated rabbit punches and low blows. But even with that deduction, the fight was still razor thin. In round 11, they stood toe-to-toe and traded, Calzaghe refusing to back down, as Reid tried to bully him into submission. After 12 hard rounds, the judges were split. 2 had it 116 to 111 for Calzaghe. 1 had it 116 to 111 for Reid. It was the closest Joe Calzaghe ever came to losing his undefeated record. This win edges out the Roy Jones Jr. fight for a reason. Reid was in his prime, dangerous, and fully committed to winning. while Jones, years later, was no longer the fighter he once was. Against Reed, Calzaghe didn't just win. He proved he could be hurt, tested, and still find a way to survive. This was the night Joe Calzaghe learned how to win when Plan A wasn't enough. Number 4. Chris Eubank, 11th October 1997. Before Joe Calzaghe was a world champion, he had to go through a British legend. After Steve Collins withdrew and retired, the vacant WBO title suddenly became available. And standing in Calzaghe's way was Chris Eubank, a two-time world champion, a man forged in wars with Nigel Benn and Michael Watson, a fighter who simply did not break. Calzaghe was just 25 years old and 22-0, still unproven at elite world level. But from the opening seconds, he made a statement, dropping Eubank almost immediately with a lightning-fast combination. For a moment, it looked like it might be easy. It wasn't. Eubank got up and dragged Calzaghe into something he had never experienced before, a punishing, relentless battle of attrition. The pace was brutal. The exchanges were vicious. This was no showcase. This was survival. Eubank pressed forward, soaking up shots and forcing the young southpaw into deep waters. Years later, Calzaghe admitted that by the halfway point, he was exhausted and unsure he could keep going. This was the first time he had been to what he called a dark place. But this is where champions are born. Calzaghe dug deep, then deeper, finding second, third, and fourth wins as Eubank continued to push, looking to break him. Neither man gave an inch. It was a true test of heart, endurance, and will. After 12 grueling rounds, Calzaghe emerged with a clear unanimous decision, with scores of 118 to 110, 118 to 109, and 116 to 111, capturing his first world title and proving he belonged at the highest level. This wasn't just a win. It was the night Joe Calzaghe proved he could survive hell and still come out champion. Number 3. Jeff Lacy, 4th March 2006. This was the night Joe Calzaghe stopped being overlooked and started being feared. The fight was billed as a super middleweight unification, but in reality, it was sold as a coronation, just not for Calzaghe. Jeff Left Hook Lacy was the American wrecking ball, the IBF champion, the so-called next Mike Tyson, younger, stronger, hyped, undefeated, and according to most of the boxing world, about to run over the long-reigning WBO champion from Wales. Even in the UK, many doubted Joe. And behind the scenes, he was fighting more than just an opponent. His left hand was damaged from a recent break, and he seriously considered pulling out. Instead, he walked into the Manchester arena and delivered one of the most devastating boxing masterclasses ever seen. From the opening bell, Calzaghe made Lacy look completely lost. The jab snapped his head back. The combinations never stopped. The angles were flawless. The pace was unbearable. Lacy couldn't cut off the ring. He couldn't land clean. He couldn't breathe. He was being taken apart by speed, volume, and precision he had never faced before. By the middle rounds, the fight had turned into something uncomfortable to watch. A supposed elite puncher being dismantled in front of the world. Calzaghe wasn't just winning. He was humiliating a man who had been picked to beat him. After 12 one-sided rounds, Joe walked away with the IBF, WBO, and Ring Magazine belts. And Jeff Lacy was never the same fighter again. This wasn't just a victory. This was Joe Calzaghe announcing himself to the world as a pound-for-pound great. Number 2. Mikkel Kessler, 3rd November 2007. This was the fight that finally settled the super middleweight throne. Joe Calzaghe had ruled the WBO belt for 9 years. He was undefeated in 43 fights, a longtime champion, and already a pound-for-pound star. But Mikkel Kessler was the man standing in his way of undisputed dominance. The WBA and WBC champion, unbeaten, powerful, and widely regarded as the second best super middleweight on the planet. Winner takes everything. The stage could not have been bigger. 50,000 fans packed into the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff, with Calzaghe fighting in front of his home nation in the most important bout of his career. The opening rounds were tense and technical. Kessler had success early, especially in the fourth, when sharp right uppercuts snapped Calzaghe's head back and showed that the Dane's power was real. For a moment, it looked like Joe might be in serious trouble. But as the fight wore on, Calzaghe did what he always did. He raised the tempo to a level no one else could live with. His footwork began to create angles. His hands never stopped moving. Flurries came in waves. Kessler had the heavier shots, but Calzaghe was drowning him in volume. By the later rounds, the Dane was fading under the relentless pressure as Joe kept him pinned on the back foot, forcing him to fight at a pace he couldn't sustain. After 12 hard, high-level rounds, the judges were clear. Calzaghe won by unanimous decision. The victory unified the WBA, WBC, WBO, and Ring Magazine titles, and cemented Joe Calzaghe as the undisputed king of the super middleweight division. A champion not just of belts, but of his era. Number 1. Bernard Hopkins, 19th April 2008. This was the night Joe Calzaghe crossed the final frontier. By 2008, Calzaghe had already cleaned out super middleweight boxing. He was unbeaten, unified, and regarded as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters on the planet. But there was still one thing missing from his resume: a defining victory in America against a living legend. Bernard Hopkins was exactly that. The 43-year-old Hopkins was the ring light heavyweight champion, a master of survival, control, and psychological warfare. Before the fight, he turned the build-up toxic, doing everything he could to get inside Calzaghe's head. From the opening bell, he tried to drag Joe into a slow, ugly, clinch-heavy fight designed to break rhythm and patience. And early on, it worked. In the very first round, Hopkins dropped Calzaghe with a short right hand. Blood appeared on Calzaghe's face. The crowd went quiet. The message was clear: this was no routine fight. Hopkins continued to smother, foul, hold, and frustrate. Every time Calzaghe tried to unleash his famous combinations, Hopkins tied him up, leaned on him, and slowed the tempo. It was exactly the kind of fight Hopkins had built his career on. But as the rounds passed, something changed. Hopkins began to fade. Calzaghe, 7 years younger and in far better condition, kept pushing. His footwork improved, his volume increased, and while Hopkins still landed occasional counters, he was being outworked, round after round. By the championship rounds, Calzaghe was clearly in control. The 10th round brought controversy when Hopkins went down from a body shot he claimed was low. He was given the full 5 minutes to recover, but even after the break, Calzaghe kept coming. Hopkins tried to rally in the 11th, but Joe stood his ground and fired back. After 12 tense rounds, the verdict was in. Joe Calzaghe had beaten Bernard Hopkins. 2 judges had it clearly for Joe. Even HBO's ringside scorer agreed. Against one of the smartest, toughest fighters of the modern era, in his own country, Calzaghe had won a second world title and proved that his greatness wasn't confined to Europe. This wasn't just a win, it was validation. In the wake of Ricky Hatton's untimely death, millions around the world are remembering the Hitman, not just for his lightning fists and world titles, but for something more: his heart. What better way to honor Ricky than to revisit his top 5 career victories, and in doing so, celebrate the man he was outside the ring too. Ricky Hatton wasn't just a world champion. He was a local hero, a friend to fans, and a man who carried his roots wherever he went. Even at the peak of fame, he stayed grounded, visiting his local pub for darts, playing Sunday football with old mates, staying close to the places that shaped him. In a final interview just days before his death, he made it clear. He didn't want to be remembered simply as the greatest. He hoped to be remembered as someone who stayed true, as a man of the people. His family have shared what many already knew. Hatton's kindness, his loyalty, his humor were as much a part of his legacy as the fights. He gave his all in the ring, but outside of it, he wore his heart on his sleeve, helping others, speaking openly about his struggles with mental health, and never forgetting where he came from. So let's remember him properly. Let's look at the 5 defining wins that shaped Ricky Hatton's legacy, and the story they tell about the fighter and the man. Number 5. 13 May 2006, Boston. Ricky Hatton versus Luis Collazo, WBA welterweight title. Ricky Hatton steps into the ring for the first time at welterweight, facing Luis Collazo for the WBA title. Hatton is moving up from light welterweight. Bigger, stronger opponents await, and the challenge is enormous. The fight begins, and Hatton makes an immediate statement. Within 10 seconds, he lands a left hook that floors Collazo, sending shockwaves through the arena. But the early knockdown doesn't tell the whole story. Collazo, a tough and savvy southpaw, fights back fiercely. He counters, moves, and forces Hatton into a grueling back-and-forth battle that tests every ounce of his skill, heart, and determination. 12 rounds later, Hatton wins a unanimous decision, 115 to 112, 115 to 112, 114 to 113. It's close. It's brutal. And while the fight didn't fully answer questions about Hatton at 147, Calzaghe had pushed him hard, and skeptics remained. It did achieve something Hatton had dreamed of his whole career, winning a world title in a second weight class. This fight mattered because it fulfilled Hatton's two-division ambition. It introduced him to the American audience and showed the world his grit, resilience, and sheer will. Calzaghe pushed him to his limits, and Hatton responded by showing that even when the outcome was uncertain, he could endure and claim victory. In short, this fight wasn't just about a belt. It was about ambition, courage, and achieving a dream that many fighters never get the chance to chase. And in doing so, Ricky Hatton marked a new chapter in his career, one that would lead to even bigger battles. Number 4. 26th November 2005, Sheffield Arena. Ricky Hatton versus Carlos Maussa, IBF and WBA light welterweight unification. Ricky Hatton, fresh from one of the biggest wins of his career over Kostya Tszyu, steps into the ring against Colombian champion Carlos Maussa. This fight isn't just another title defense. It's a unification bout, with Hatton looking to hold both the IBF and WBA light welterweight belts at the same time. The stakes could not be higher. From the first bell, Hatton brings his trademark aggression, pressing Maussa, cutting off the ring, and landing heavy, straight punches. Maussa is no pushover, a tough, awkward, and unpredictable fighter who had shocked the world to win the WBA belt. He counters effectively, landing solid shots that test Hatton's resolve and force him to dig deeper. As the fight wears on, Hatton's conditioning and relentless pressure begin to tell. He keeps Maussa on the back foot, punishing his opponent and wearing him down. Despite suffering cuts above both eyes from accidental head clashes, Hatton never relents. Then, in the 9th round, with Maussa's right eye nearly swollen shut, Hatton lands a devastating left hook that sends the Colombian crashing to the canvas. The referee counts him out, and Hatton secures the knockout victory at 1:10 of the 9th round. This fight is significant because it achieves multiple milestones for Hatton. He unifies the IBF and WBA titles, cementing his status as the undisputed king of the light welterweight division. It demonstrates his grit, his ability to endure adversity, and his unyielding will to dominate. And crucially, it sets the stage for the next chapter of his career, the move up to welterweight, where he would chase new challenges, new belts, and new dreams. In short, the Maussa fight wasn't just about winning another title. It was about proving that Hatton could persevere under pressure, rise to the occasion, and continue building a legacy that would make him one of Britain's most iconic fighters. Number 3. 23rd June 2007, Las Vegas. Ricky Hatton versus Jose Luis Castillo. Ricky Hatton steps into the ring against Mexican legend Jose Luis Castillo, a former lightweight champion known for his durability, toughness, and never-say-die spirit. This isn't just another fight for Hatton. It's a test against a seasoned warrior, a chance to prove that he's not just a homegrown hero, but one of the best in the world. From the first bell, Hatton imposes his trademark pressure. He cuts off the ring, drives Castillo backwards, and keeps up a punishing pace. Castillo, however, is no ordinary opponent. He counters with speed and precision, landing solid punches that test Hatton's resolve and make it clear this will be a battle of attrition as much as skill. For the first 3 rounds, both fighters trade heavy blows, neither willing to give an inch, neither yielding to the other. The tension is electric, and every punch carries the weight of stakes that go far beyond titles. Then, in the 4th round, it happens. Hatton finds his mark with a perfectly timed left hook to Castillo's liver, a punch delivered with the force and precision that only comes from years of experience and relentless training. Castillo crumples to the canvas, and the referee begins the count. The crowd watches in awe as one of the most decisive blows of Hatton's career ends the fight at 2:16 of the 4th round. This victory is more than just a knockout. It demonstrates Hatton's power, his precision, and his ability to control a fight against a tough, world-class opponent. It solidifies his reputation as one of the premier light welterweights in the world, and reinforces the truth that when Ricky Hatton is at his best, he can dominate even the most experienced fighters. The win over Tszyu propels Hatton to the next level of global recognition and sets the stage for the biggest challenges of his career, reminding everyone that the hitman's combination of skill, courage, and relentless heart is unmatched. Number 2. 22nd November 2008, Las Vegas. Ricky Hatton versus Paulie Malignaggi. Ricky Hatton steps into the ring against Paulie Malignaggi, a slick, fast-talking New Yorker with a reputation for precision over power. This isn't just another fight. It's a statement. Hatton, coming off a loss to Floyd Mayweather Jr. the previous year, has brought in new trainer Floyd Mayweather Sr. to refine his technique and add layers to his game. The world is watching to see if the hitman can evolve. Malignaggi starts strong, using his jab to control the distance and find his rhythm. But Hatton, ever the relentless pressure fighter, adapts quickly. He cuts off the ring, lands heavy body shots, and begins to break Malignaggi down. The crowd roars as Hatton's power begins to tell, and Malignaggi, known for his durability, starts to show signs of wear. By the 11th round, it's clear. Malignaggi's corner, seeing their fighter unable to continue, steps in and ends the fight, giving Hatton a technical knockout victory at 0:48 of the round. The crowd erupts in cheers as Hatton celebrates, his new style and determination on full display. This fight is significant because it marks a turning point in Hatton's career. The win not only reaffirms his position at the top of the light welterweight division, but also showcases his ability to adapt and evolve as a fighter. It sets the stage for future challenges and cements Hatton's legacy as one of the sport's most formidable champions. Number 1. 4 June 2005, Manchester. Ricky Hatton versus Kostya Tszyu, IBF light welterweight title. The arena is electric, tens of thousands of fans screaming, and Ricky Hatton steps into the ring against
The cruiserweight also comes stone, 6 pounds and 10 ounces. His professional record, 47 contests, 45 victories including 32 knockouts with 2 defeats and 4 world titles. He's the former 4-time light welterweight and former welterweight champion of the world, the charismatic pride of Manchester, England, Ricky Hitman Hatton.
There is Jennifer, his partner, mother of his daughter Millie, who was screaming when Hatton was knocked out by Manny Pacquiao 3.5 years ago. Victor Lachlan is the referee, and you can hardly hear yourself thinking here. Michael Buffer could hardly make himself heard. The fans are going absolutely crazy, and this hasn't started yet.
Yeah, incredible. This is it. Now, for Ricky Hatton, this is what he's been waiting for, Ian.
What has he got left after